Hey there, welcome back to another review. This time it's definitely going to be more of a rant, and that is on, to date, the worst film in the Phantasm franchise, Phantasm IV, Oblivion, which is precisely where I want to chuck this film. I want to chuck this movie into oblivion, into a black hole, never to be seen again by anybody. There's so many different portals in this movie. I want to throw every single copy of this piece of shit into one of them, so then people in some alternate universe can deal with this bullshit instead of me. Anyway, Phantasm IV Oblivion is, in essence, a placeholder for a movie that never got made. Don Coscarelli wanted to do a film called Phantasm, it was like 1999 AD, and he wanted to have Bruce Campbell in it. It was like a post-apocalyptic, futuristic Phantasm movie, which I honestly don't think is really the best idea. But okay, alright, whatever. But, that movie was never made because they didn't have the budget for it. So what Don decided to do was make this movie featuring over 50% of stock footage, including like some deleted scenes that they found from the first movie, and then shot some scenes of Mike in a desert somewhere, and a couple other sequences with Reggie, and a few sort of scenes, flashback, alternate universe, dimension sequences, and some stuff with the tall man, and then called it a fucking day, and called it a movie, which this isn't really a movie, because more than half of it is fucking stock footage. Now, and it just doesn't it makes no sense. It completely undoes the continuity from the first film, or the second movie, the third. It just doesn't make it just makes the entire franchise total nonsense. It just ruins the continuity and makes none of it make any sense. And it's not like it made like a whole lot of sense to begin with from the beginning, but now it makes even less sense. Now it doesn't make any sense at all. So it's not only a bad sequel, it's not only a bad movie, but it's one of those sequels that just completely undermines the previous films. It just makes everything just a fucking confusing, muddled mess. And like I was saying, it was just made to try to raise money for a Phantasm film that never got made. So this is not only an infuriatingly frustrating movie in terms of what it does to the continuity of the franchise, or what's left of it, but it's also a very frustrating movie because it's pointless. Its pointlessness is not the only issue this film has. There's plenty of other issues. A laundry list of issues. It's a long list of issues when it comes to Phantasm IV, Oblivion. If I want to watch something Oblivion related, I'll watch I think it was like there's like a full moon series called Oblivion, if I remember correctly, and it was like High Noon in Space. So I'll watch that instead of this, because this is just brutal. It was brutally bad. There's a scene in this movie where Mike tries to hang himself, and he actually does succeed, but the tall man brings him back to life. So he hangs himself on a rope tied to a tree in the middle of the desert. And that just sums up the experience of watching this movie. You're just like... Because that's really what it's like. It's a slow and painful death. It's so fucking hard to watch. This took me 3 times to finish it. 3 fucking times. 3 times. First time, I fell asleep. Second time, I was just like, fuck it, I can't take this. The third time, I had to stop 30, 40 minutes in because I was going to fall asleep again, so I got up and did my own dishes. This was so poorly paced and so boring that the prospect of doing my own dishes, of doing recycling, cleaning my room, taking a shit, doing whatever, anything other than watching this movie is desirable. That's how fucking awful Oblivion is. So the movie, it's directed by Don Coscarelli, and I hate to say this, but his direction in this is as flat as a flat tire. It is some of the worst direction I've ever seen from Don. The majority of the movie is just shot in super tight, up close shots. There's none of the style, there's none of the flair, there's none of the atmosphere that any of the previous films had. It looks and feels like a TV movie. And don't give me, oh, it only had $650,000 to work with, because Don had less than that to work with for Phantasm. And that movie has this really unique visual style to it. It has a nice charm to it, a B-movie charm. This just is flat and boring. It looks like a pilot for some failed TV series. Reminded me of episodes of Poltergeist: The Legacy. What are you gonna do? Phantasm: The Legacy? Is that what this is supposed to be? The directing was just completely flat. It was flatlined. The screenplay by Don, I don't even know what the fuck this is about. I just saw this movie last night after the third time was finally the charm, and I don't even know. I have no idea what the fuck it was about. There's some dimension hopping bullshit, which makes me think that this movie should be retitled Sliders, the Phantasm Edition, because there's so many different sequences where they just hop through dimensions and back. Uh, there's some stuff with the origin of the tall man, but it doesn't go anywhere with it. It's very brief and vague. There's I don't even know what the fuck was going on. There's stock footage from the first movie and like deleted scenes from the first movie that are used to like tie into the story. I don't even know what the fuck happened. I still don't know what the fuck happened. I don't even think this had a story. The only thing I could think of is that the tall man's whole goal was to pull out this spear out of Mike's head. And when we talk about a headache, that's what this film gives me. Just fucking thinking about it, just talking about it, just gives me a headache. Where's the Tylenol? But anyway, uh, I hope I didn't blow your eardrums out there. I apologize. Uh, but okay, Don, he directs, he writes, and he produces this movie. Angus Scrimm comes back as a tall man, and he's fine. He's not the problem. Angus Scrimm, he's one of the few things I liked about the movie. He just doesn't have that much to do. A. Michael Baldwin comes back, and I'm sorry, I'm not a fan of him. I thought he was a better actor when he was a kid. As an adult, he's he's a piece of wood. His acting was so wooden in this. I personally feel he gave me splinters. I feel like I got splinters from watching his acting. That's how wooden it was. He's a boring, bland, uncharismatic lead. The scenes of him wandering around the desert were fucking painful. It was just really. I mean, I'd rather go wander around in the fucking desert than watch the scenes where Mike is wandering around in the fucking desert. Maybe I'd see like a cactus or something or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, not a fan of his performance at all. Reggie Bannister comes back as Reggie. He's inconsistent. It's like 50-50. Like there's some scenes that I like the scene when he's talking about how he's gonna take the tall man's balls. And there's a few moments here and there when he gears up with his quad-barreled shotgun and shoots some of the lurkers and things like that. But for the most part, I don't know. It's just not. It just seems like he's just thrown in there. He's just shoehorned into the movie. Um, and there's certain scenes where it just doesn't feel like Reggie. And then there's other scenes where he's given lines that are really lame, like "blow me," like "blow me." Really? That's the best line you could come up with is "blow me." Yeah, blow me, blow me. Phantasm IV. Yeah, blow me. Ugh. Cause you suck dick. Uh, it's, oh fuck. So, Bill Thornbury also comes back as Jody, and his character in this, I hate. I hate his character in this, and I'll talk about that in more detail later. Bob Ivy is a stuntman. He has a bit role as a demon trooper, which is an absolute knockoff of Hell Cop from Highway to Hell. And like the first half of the movie felt like a bunch of knockoff stuff. Like I felt like I felt like I was ripped off. Really, I was like, this isn't a movie. Like if I would. What is this? This is like some failed experimental film or some shit. I don't know what the fuck this is. It's not a movie. It's a movie in name only, in title only. Um, but yeah, he looked a lot like Hell Cop, and I'm like, if I want to watch that kind of stuff, a demon cop, I'll watch My Highway to Hell, and that's not even the greatest movie, but it's a hell of a lot better than this. So yeah, alright. So now we get to the basic. Okay, I'm just gonna go through the plot here. Well, I mean, there's this score. I mean, Christopher L. Stone worked on the score. It's in one ear out the other, except for the Phantasm theme. But even that didn't seem to have the impact like it had in the other films for some reason. It's like there really wasn't much of a score. And sadly, Fred Myrow actually passed away after this movie was released. So that's too bad. The cinematography by Chris Choman was just, there's nothing to it. It was just absolutely, completely unmemorable. It looked TV movie or TV show quality. Uh, Scott J. Gill, the editing. I'll give the editing by Scott J. Gill. I thought, especially in the beginning when there's a bunch of these different ways that he's editing this stock footage, I thought it was actually pretty good. So I'll give the editor credit. Doesn't mean the movie's any good, just because the editing is good. I still can't believe this is 90 minutes long. It felt like 4 hours and 90 minutes because the pacing is as slow as quicksand. And yeah, it was released in '98, and it was like direct to video, I believe. And yeah, thank God this shit didn't come out in theaters. But anyway, I feel bad for anybody who had to watch this in the theater. But the film actually opens up where Phantasm III left off, where Mike flees the mortuary in a hearse. But it makes no mention of Tim whatsoever. No mention of Rocky, what happens to her, nothing. In fact, I think in one of the early screenplays, Tim was going to be eaten by the lurkers in the beginning, which is just going to be a complete rehash of the beginning of Phantasm III, Lord of the Dead, which I didn't like, of what they did to the character, to Liz's character. So I'm like, why the hell would you open it the same way? Of course, because it's deja fucking vu with Don Coscarelli in most of these movies. I will give this film this, though. It doesn't end like all the other ones do, but it's still a fucking shitty ending because it still doesn't make any fucking sense. It's still an open ending that doesn't end the story. It doesn't do, it just is frustrating. It's as equally as frustrating as the shock endings from the previous films. So anyway, it opens up where the predecessor left off, with carrying over and continuing the story that I didn't fucking like from Phantasm 3, where you had the revelation that Mike was like the next tall man, or he had a sphere in his head and he was bleeding yellow. I was just like, what the fuck? I don't. Why? Why do we have to make this so complicated? It's just, and this just piles on top of it. This is needlessly complex with all this dimension, all these different dimensions and shit. I'm like, less is more, Don. Damn it, Don. Less is more. The series was more effective when we didn't know any of this stuff. When it was ambiguous. When it was just, okay, the tall man is some kind of interdimensional creature, maybe, or an alien, and he's doing work and finding ways to help these these aliens from some other planet to get them slaves to do their dirty work or something. And that's what the lurkers were. That's what it was. That's how I interpreted it in the first movie. Because they didn't spell it right out for you. But as the series went on, it's just explaining stuff. And sometimes it's kind of interesting, like what the spheres are. But then that's completely fucking dropped for this movie because Jody apparently is not. Oh, his brain is not normal and it's inside of the sphere. No, he's one of the tall man's pawns. He's been one of his pawns the whole fucking time. He's an asshole. He's unlikable. Mike's like, I can't trust you, and I'm like, what the? Where the hell did this come from? Where the hell did that come from? There's no hint of that in the previous film. So, the movie, you have this opening with Mike going in the hearse, fleeing, getting away, and then there's a bunch of stock footage. I swear, like 5 minutes of stock footage from the previous films. And I mean, there's so much stock footage in this movie that it made me pull my hair out. So, seriously, it's just enough of the fucking stock footage. It's like I've already seen these scenes before. I just saw these movies. I don't need to see these scenes again. I hate movies like this where half of it or more than half of it is fucking stock footage. It's lazy. So, then it cuts to Reggie, when he's trapped by the spheres, and then it just becomes lazy again. Like the laziness continues. The stock footage, the lazy stock footage is bad enough. Now we have the tall man is all like, he's got Reggie dead to rights. The guy who has foiled his plans multiple times, who's helped kill him multiple times, and he just waves the spheres off and then says some line and then lets him go. I'm like, what the fuck was that? Like, you have him dead to rights, and you're like, oh, whatever. And just lets him go. And then if that's not bad enough, you see this absolutely horrendous looking CGI effect. I know it was something that some fans did for this film, but I gotta call it like it is. The CGI, the scene where these thousands of spheres fly around a corner in CGI is just awful. It just looks terrible. It looks like something out of the asylum. And then after that, like I mean, then you get like the opening credits sequence, which is not much really. I did kind of like the clever way though how they incorporated the Roman numerals of 4 into the Oblivion title. But that's not saying much. And then you get Reggie's character, and Jody shows up, as a sphere form, and Reggie's like not acting like Reggie. He's acting all selfish and stuff. He's like, I don't care about Mike. I don't care about you, Jody. I don't trust you. Get away from me. I don't want to do this anymore. And I'm like, where did this come from? This is totally out of character. And it was completely pointless because later, after Reggie fights the Hellcop wannabe, the demon trooper, he just goes back to trying to find Mike anyway. So it just doesn't. What was the fucking point of that? What was the point of this whole movie? There isn't one. So Mike's brother Jody is now a sphere. He can occasionally resume his human form, and he persuades Reggie to search for Mike, but it doesn't work because Reggie's like, I don't want to do it. I don't like you. And then on the way, Reggie survives a demon attack, which is the practical effect on the demon trooper was decent, but the way that the whole sequence was shot was so flat and just completely just there was no thrills. There's nothing behind it. It just felt like They didn't feel like Don's heart was in this. It felt like I gotta do this because I want to make money to make the Phantasm movie that I want to make, but, alright, I'll just do this. Just going through the motions. And even Reggie Bannister in on more than one occasion with his performance seems like he's going through the motions. This is definitely probably one of the worst performances I've seen from Reggie. And not as a whole, because there are some moments where he shines, but there's other moments where it just doesn't. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the lines of dialogue he has. Man, some cops can be assholes. Uh, so I'm just trying to remember what the fuck happened. Sorry, because it was just so forgettable. It's fucking forgettable. So they stay the night. Actually, Reggie, and by they stay the night, Reggie ends up rescuing some woman named Jennifer, who is played by Heidi Marnhout, who isn't really the greatest actress in the world either. Pretty much what she is she's a vehicle for the titty spheres, which is a good effect by K&B. They did it as a favor for Don, but the titty sphere scene. eh, it's not much. It's just like, oh, she has spheres for tits. Okay. They pop out, they fly around, they act like the Three Stooges, collide into each other, and Reggie smashes one with a sledgehammer, and then one drills through his hand, and then he uses a tuning fork to make one disappear. And I have to admit, that was good. I liked that. I thought it was a clever little thing to bring back the tuning fork. There are some clever things in this movie, I have to admit, but it doesn't save the film. It doesn't. I have no desire to ever watch this again for many reasons. There's plenty of reasons why. And I'm only touching the tip of the iceberg. So, but yeah, the scene was pointless. It was filler. I mean, the whole movie is filler, really. So the scene was filler, and apparently it was in one of the earlier scripts that Roger Avery wrote, and it was a dream sequence. But Don threw it in here as like a real sequence. But to me, it doesn't make any sense because the tall man, why? Why are you going through all this trouble to throw in some zombie Jennifer with spheres for tits, and when you could have killed him right then and there in the beginning of the movie, but you just fucking let him go. It's just completely pointless. I don't understand. So, Mike, then Mike is going around wandering the desert, trying to uncover the mysteries of the tall man and who he is, and he's trying to escape his transformation into what we have no fucking idea. Another tall man, maybe, but it's not elaborated upon. He drives in a getaway hearse through abandoned areas, and recalling the last days of his youth in a very monotone narration over deleted scenes from the first film. He ends up in Death Valley. He writes some last will and testament. He expresses his intent to force the tall man into a final confrontation, which never fucking happens, because this film has an extremely anticlimactic ending. As the tall man interrupts his attempted suicide, he actually did kill himself. He hung himself. Mike then passes through a gateway. He meets a kind man named Jebediah Morningside, which apparently was who the tall man was before he became the tall man. And Angus Scrimm is good here. It does a good job playing a kind old man. It's just I wanted to see more of that. That scene when he first shows up, when Mike first sees Jebediah Morningside, it lasts for like 2 minutes or less than that, and then Mike just leaves, goes through the portal, and goes back to the desert. I'm like, why the fuck did that last only like a minute and a half or less than that? Because then later in the film, he's like, I gotta go back. You were right there. What the fuck is why? Why were you just like, oh, I gotta go right back. I gotta stop him before he becomes a tall man. You were right fucking there. You could have just stayed there. I don't know, wait till he decides to go through the portal or do whatever. I mean, it would have been more interesting if Mike just stayed there in the pet time period in the first place. I don't get it. There's interesting things here, like the origins of the tall man, but it doesn't focus on that. It focuses on just filler scenes with Reggie that don't go anywhere. Mike hanging out in the desert, trying to use the Force, and then also trying to get away from the tall man. Or he's driving around the hearse and having nightmares or having hallucinations that look like they were ripped straight out of Jacob's Ladder. Because there was a total scene where there's like a guy in the back seat who's got like a something over his face and you can't see his eyes, and his mouth is all covered with something, and he's screaming and he's like shaking and stuff, and I'm like, that's absolutely an image from Jacob's Ladder. You're just ripping off Jacob's Ladder now, Don. Stop. Stop ripping off other movies. So, and stop ripping me off. So it's driving around the fucking. There's the scenes in the desert that go fucking nowhere, that are boring because nothing fucking happens. Jody shows up. Uh, but Mike accuses his brother of abandoning him, and he doesn't trust him, so he doesn't trust Jody. And because of the stupid script, apparently he's right, because Jody is evil for some reason in this movie. No fucking clue. See, I don't buy it, because if Jody really was the tall man's pawn the whole time, he would not have tried to sacrifice himself to save Mike in the beginning of Phantasm IV. So Jody disappears. Mike begins working on the hearse's engine, uses some parts to build a makeshift sphere that doesn't do jack shit except distract the tall man for a climax at the end that still doesn't do jack shit. Except, oh, there's a practical explosion. Woo! I'd like to stick a stick of dynamite. I like to attach a whole, slab of C4 on this fucking thing and blow it to Kingdom Come. That would be really satisfying. That would be an explosion that I want to see. So then you have this Sliders Phantasm Edition bullshit, where now Mike theorizes that Jebediah must somehow become the tall man after traveling through the space gate, so he plans to prevent his first journey. So he goes through a gate, but he finds himself in a deserted city, and he finds himself in other places, and they hop from dimension to dimension. Like Sliders. But want to watch that shit, I'll just watch Sliders. So meanwhile, Reggie arrives at Death Valley, fights off a group of zombie dwarves, the lurkers. There's a cool scene where he's gearing up, and I like the nice little callback to the first film where he's wearing his ice cream man suit. But he just doesn't really do much. He shoots a few lurkers in a very just blasé, meh, mediocre fashion. And Mike and Jody reappear through the gate. Mike embraces Reggie, tells him not to trust Jody. Mike takes a tuning fork from Reggie. Mike and Jody pass through the gate. They appear in Jebediah's house. They see the old man. They see how he perfects his craft. You see how he creates an interdimensional gate. Mike tries to stab Jebediah, who vanishes moments later, is replaced by the evil tall man who emerges in his place. The tall man can see Jody and Mike, forcing Mike to escape through the gate. Go back to Death Valley because they go through another fucking gate. Jody finds Mike in the cemetery and attacks him because apparently Jody's evil now. Mike awakens on the. Excuse me, this movie's giving me indigestion. That's why I had to burp there. But Mike uses the tuning fork to mobilize Jody and the tall man as they attempt to saw his head open because Jody's evil now. He kills Jody with the sphere he built, because he uses the tuning fork, and for some reason makes the tall man move his hand and cut Jody's throat. The tall man quickly revives, so it doesn't do jack shit. Takes the fork from Mike, and this scene where he's like doing all this stuff. He's using telekinetic abilities and taking the tuning fork away from Mike. Completely undermines the deleted scene from the first movie that they used extensively in this film, where there's a scene where apparently Jody ended up finding a way to trap the tall man by putting a noose around his neck and hanging him in a tree, and he's not able to get out of that. The tall man has all these fucking superhuman abilities, telekinetic powers and shit, but he can't get himself out of a rope around his neck. So he calls for Mike, this is from a scene from the first movie, to come in and cut him down. And Mike does, I'm glad that scene was cut, because it makes Mike appear to be a total fucking dumbass, where he just buys the tall man's BS, or the tall man, Mike's like, if I let you down, are you gonna go away? And then the tall man's like, yes. and I'll never come back. You're like, yeah, fucking right. In the first movie, without that scene, Mike appears to be a smart kid. If this scene was kept in the film, he'd appear to be a total dumbass because he fucking bought this guy he's been running from, who he knows is like killed. He's taken dead bodies and shrunk them down in size and done all of his crazy shit and made his life a living hell. And he's just gonna like cut him down because he said, gave me his word. Ridiculous. So, but this, like I said, why was that scene in it? Because we needed filler. Because we don't have enough scenes that we've actually shot. So we need to have like something to pad the running time to make this feature length. So the tall man takes the fork away. Mike escapes through the gate back to Death Valley. Tall man comes back to him. Reggie tries to shoot the tall man, but it doesn't do anything because the tall man just throws him around like a rag doll. Mike then summons the sphere that he built and uses it to impale the tall man in the back of the head, but it doesn't do shit. Amused by what he calls Mike's toy, the tall man, I guess, is distracted because that was the whole point. So Mike activates the hearse's motor, which is a strange interdimensional bomb, and it blows up, and it supposedly kills the tall man. But it doesn't do anything because a new tall man immediately comes through the gate, which completely undermines that fucking climax, makes it frustratingly and irritatingly anticlimactic, revealing that the tall man is but one of many. So it's like, well, fuck me, alright, you can never die, but it's never over. It's a cop-out. It's a fucking cop-out. It's Don being lazy. It's lazy fucking screenwriting. So, he then ends up removing the golden sphere from Mike's head and passes through the gate. I'm like, that was the whole plan? I was just gonna take the sphere out of his head. After all of that, that's all it fucking was. It's just taking a sphere out of Mike's head? Really? That's it? That's all it was? Just pluck the sphere out, walk through the fucking gate. Oh, yeah, that's it. I mean, God, Jesus fucking Christ, the rubber crutches, what the fuck? Reggie arms himself with his shotgun and then chases the tall man through the gate. And then I guess Mike is dying, and then he has like a flashback to a memory of him climbing into Reggie's ice cream truck, and they drive off into the night. And then it's end credits. And I'm like, what the hell did I just fucking watch? What the fuck happened? Why? Damn it, Don, why? Oh, it doesn't end with a shock ending where somebody gets pulled through the glass again. But, it just makes me want to punch my hands through the glass of my TV fucking screen and fucking pull the movie out and rip it to shreds. Makes me want to punch Don in the face and kick him in the balls. Show him exactly how I feel. Show him what it's like to watch this fucking movie. How painful it is. I really don't know what else to say about this fucking movie. I don't, except this. This is what I have to say about this piece of shit. Bunch of fucking this. To quote Phantasm IV itself, before I'll end the rant like this. If I'm going to rate this movie, I would give it 1 out of 5 stars. 1 out of 5 stars for some scenes with Reggie, some decent practical effects, Angus Scrimm, some interesting sort of things, clever sort of ideas here and there, but that's it. Because the story sucks, it's not interesting, it's boring, it doesn't make any fucking sense. More than half the movie is stock footage. The new scenes aren't very fun or that interesting. It's completely undermines certain character motivations from the previous films. It doesn't. It also undermines the entire franchise because now none of it makes any fucking sense. And yeah, fuck this movie. And yeah, I'm gonna quote the film itself. There's a scene where Reggie gets in the police car and he flips off the demon trooper, and that's exactly how I want to sum up this rant. Hey, Phantasm IV, Oblivion. Fuck you!